Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. This evening, I would like to speak about how many people are fascinated by various kinds of concepts. But when it comes to the context of something, where the concept finds itself, how many people are fascinated about the context of their life? How many people are fascinated about wondering if the context of their life could be different? You know, imagine you're a person, your whole life you have been a carpenter. And so it is an honorable task, it is work you have done. But the question will come, are you just a carpenter? And it is true, as we get older, we gotta kind of, specify, specialize. But I would say the context of life changing is where the excitement comes. It's where the ambition, the vision comes, because we treat ourselves as a same concept every day. To some degree, we say it's me, I woke up again, it's the same me that was here yesterday. Yet, on a cellular level, phenomena has changed. Even to the conscious receiver of the moment, the content has changed. We can say many species in nature, they couldn't realize themselves as a concept because they could not change their context. We don't see lions building skyscrapers. So nature is set in a certain context. Our animal instincts are, when we go to a familiar, imagine a post-apocalyptic situation or some chaotic situation, the person is pushed to a point where they will become an animal. That's the nature of the human being. We are an animal by nature. And if we stray away from our civility, we will descend into memories that we tried really hard to forget, patterns of behavior. Every person, of course, is exposed to a spectrum of emotions here. Now, let us say there's the emotion of anger. For me personally, I would say sometimes I could tell you that, it's been a while where my anger doesn't leave the inner realms. I can tell you. That really there isn't that much of a reason to even perceive anger in the outer realms unless it's like, you know, momentary emotion. That means some emotions, they're momentary. You go to a concert, you're feeling great, emotion. You go to a stand-up comedy show, there's a joke, you laugh, there's an instant emotion. The emotion comes and it's like a wind, it passes. But some emotions are constant, and those emotions that always find you, they are either based on habitual living in a certain way, as if you have built your mind in a certain way, and now to change it, you will constantly feel the difference. Or we can say that it's an issue from the inner realm. Ah. Anyways, What I'm trying to say is that the context can change. Sometimes when it comes to emotion, me personally, in moments of anger, it seems that a sort of context is evoked. That means imagine you have you have a memory of yourself being angry, and you have two memory you let's say you have three memories of yourself being angry. Let's say you have one memory of let's say you have three memories of being super angry and one memory of just being regular angry. And so let's say from that regular anger, let's say you're in a irregular situation and you get angry suddenly, regular type of anger. That regular anger will evoke the other types of anger from other memories. It becomes an avalanche of emotion. That means if the person chooses to become a bit not, I mean, not that this is a enforced idea, but I'm just saying like if the attention for some reason cannot move, the world moves you. That means forces outside of your free will move you. Whether those forces, the person can choose to have a metaphysical story, thinking as if it's like something else behind the veil of sensory perception, or the person can think it's just forces of nature, blind forces. What does that mean? That means, does it matter if a god gets angry and stomps on something? You know, for example, in Vedic thought, we had this idea, So is it does it matter if a giant meteor hits Earth, or do we like if we were to like break the Earth up because of like bad nuclear management? It would be a situation where the outcome doesn't matter at that point because there's nothing there. If a person can choose to be fascinated by not just a concept. Usually people who get bored, they're looking for concepts. Most people have a view on knowledge where they think it's just knowing something new. I would tell you it's like you have to see how anything you know fits into the story of the journey of your mind so far. That means the reason we have a direct experiential dimension is because this direct experiential dimension is leaving breadcrumbs, or you can say memories. It's leaving off a trail. A person can become conscious of the concept and the context. I'll give you an example directly. Right now, what I consider to be the most immediate concept is my physical existence. That means when I wonder about what I know in this moment, very instantly it's with watching my physical existence, the physical component. If I treat the most immediate visual component of the perception as the concept, what remains as the context can't be the same as the concept. And when a person reads Carl Jung, they'll notice Carl Jung saw this relationship and how significant it is to psychology. That it's not just what's there that's important, it's where what's there that is there. It's like where the moment is happening is a significant, you know. I'll give you an example. If you're at a gathering, let's say, at some like let's say somewhere, I don't know, let's say you're at a party, and then you get angry, right? And then there's some situation for a fight or something like that, The person, if they think of the concept, how dare this moment I be dishonored, I have to go fight for my honor, you know? Or the person can think through the context and be like, okay, this is one night, I have no clue who this drunk idiot is in front of me. What is the next chess move, you know? So that's the situation, you know? And I will tell you, some problems, they cease to exist when you are not around them. It's strange, but that is the case. That oftentimes, if you act, not often, I would say, I mean, if the conflict is begun, then it's begun. That's a totally different setting. But if the person has an ability to pilot smoothly, they should avoid turbulence. It's like the law of nature, you know? It's like wondering why those people who join the UFC, their careers become short. Do you know? The world has changed. The mind is taking more of the responsibility of the body. What does that mean? Back in the day, we would run in battlefields. Now, we perceive battlefields on screens. Now, we move on battlefields and screens. Do you see? I remember I saw this picture. It was so incredible. It was showing in 2007 children playing those arcade games, and it was showing in 2014 like gamers sitting beside a computer, and it showed the wonder that every generation just gets fascinated by the new of its time, whatever it is. And the cool thing is, if the person was a time traveler, they would suffer. If you traveled to the past and you knew what would happen in the future, you would suffer in some sense, because the unknown potential of the realm is gone. That means mystery has been denied the possibility to even be a concept if the person knows everything. I feel we should seek knowledge enough to just get to the next unknown phase of life. What does that mean? That means this unknown mind appears in a conscious waking state. And this unknown mind, in some sense, I feel there's a work to the body. Why else would energy be there for a creature? That means the question should be not, is a creature energy, but why should a creature have energy? Why should we be containers? Why should we right now be like batteries, biological batteries? Because we are like that. The person that is not like an eternal power source. Honestly, if I had a choice, this may sound strange, but I don't know. If I was in the future and there was an option to keep the body completely healthy and circulating properly, and the person didn't have to sleep at all, imagine there was some sort of, I don't know, medical hack in the future where the person could just remain awake and it would be completely healthy. That means imagine you had no reason to sleep anymore. What the body needed to do in sleep, imagine it could somehow do. So what would it be? It would be an everlasting day. And that's the thing. If we don't have this uh, 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 kind of binary on off kind of modality to our experience, we will feel infinite. If we didn't sleep, it would be like, it's like, what day is it today? Oh my God, it doesn't matter. It's like, so when we look at the context of things, many things arise. I'll give you an example. You need this, like, especially in society. I remember I was in a situation where I think I was in UK Birmingham, and I I don't I don't know how to say it. It's like strange friendliness is sometimes questionable. That means if the person thinks about the context, it's like, why is the event happening? If the person thinks about the concept, that's really just what is the happening, you know? Imagine there's a person in a party you're angry at. You're super angry, do you know? And you're about to go, let's say, in some sort of fight. Then you suddenly realize that person is the host. That person is the owner of the house, of the house party. Remembering my college days. um, the context immediately shifts. The context reveals many things that just conceptualizing something doesn't. I don't know why we don't have this word, but we should have it. Like maybe it's not used often, but it's contextualizing. It's like don't just conceptualize, contextualize. Wonder about how the concepts have arose. Wonder about where everything is. And that is the greatest thing that our species can do, to not stop asking the question regardless of what method or information is given. Let me tell you, the day I see information, we are at, I would say the language wars haven't ended. And what I mean by that is that language is occupying human attention through set behaviors. That's one thing that when I think about civilization, it isn't very. Sorry, guys, just hang on. I gotta fix something here. Okay, so I'm back. Yeah, guys, wonder about the context to the moment. That's the healthy kind of. I think that's what Sherlock Holmes was pretty much doing. That's it. Sherlock Holmes wasn't doing anything special. He was just hyper focused on the context. That's it. I mean, deduction and induction, of course, are different approaches, but I would say there is something else, We are like animals, And if we keep that in mind, that means there's an experiential system of intelligence to us. That means, think of your DNA. The DNA is a suggestion of endless experiences that have continued. I mean, think about the concept. Why should there be a gene? Why should there be a self-replicating gene? That means if there is self-replication, Okay, so I was saying, why does there need to be a self-replicating gene, pretty much? Why is this pattern? And if it's self-replicating, could it be that a universe may be performing the same thing as a cell is? That means the gene is endlessly trying to continue itself. You know, there's an intelligence of wanting to stick around as a phenomenon. Now, when we look at the universal activity, what if this too has a sort of genetical continuity? That means the universe is trying to copy itself before it can't exist anymore. And let us say perhaps that is a sort of effort of creaturehood, so that the universe copies itself in the inner realms of the creature. Maybe in a subtler way. Of course, this is take these ideas playfully, but let us say there is self-replicating universes, and let us create a concept that these self-replicating universes in their complexity go from small animate life to massive animate life. That means one thing, I mean, of course, we can't really define the universe. It's a vague term in the sense that we can't see its edge. That means it's like the person naming a room where they can't see the walls of. Like, you know, trying to say the boundaries of a room where it has no walls. And I think this self-replicating urge, guys, let us say the self-replicating urge of the universe. Oh my God. So let us say cells become way more complex. So we can say the universe is growing. I think that is the healthiest term. I think that's the healthiest verb we can use as a species. It's as if, what is the purpose of life? To grow alongside the event, you know? Just for me, the action of self-replication, that's literally the urge of human beings. You see all these Facebook posts, those are efforts of the inner realms to replicate themselves before the day ends. We can say we are designed to express. That we have never thought about this. We have seen the focus of the realm to be purely of an objective nature. But what if the purpose of physical evolution is non-physical communication, which we feel we are at right now? So what that means is, this may be strange, but the purpose of the inanimate is to communicate. That means we can say stuff exists to be seen, and at the same time to be received and to be expressed. That's the thing about life. Because look at the hand of the human being and the size of an apple. Do you know? That means sometimes I think about it. For example, why don't watermelons grow on trees? Now people are like, oh, Mr. Like, are you kidding? Like the watermelon's so heavy. But I'm like, why couldn't the watermelon have a bunch of stems? Why couldn't it be instead of like an apple? What is that thing? Like the stem of the apple is like one stem of the apple connecting it to the tree. What if there was a watermelon on the tree, but it had like, I don't know, 12 stems holding it? Do you know what I mean? So there is a uniqueness in the design of phenomena, as if like, why creaturehood? I mean, it's like too mysterious. And we can't explain. Like, here's the thing: we can't explain. Let's say, well, we say why creaturehood, and we go back to the universe being at the beginning this pool of energy, and then after a very strange explosion, anonymous explosion, there was cosmic inflation. Where what was it? It's like after cosmic inflation, the suddenly stuff appeared in less than a second. And the way we know this is because of the temperature we find in outer space, background radiation. It's just fascinating. It's just fascinating to conceive just stuff being there. That means what it is I don't think human beings are satisfied with just existing to themselves. I feel that's the thing. I mean, what is the pattern? The pattern is self-replication, and as the person gets older, I was hearing Jordan Peterson give a talk on this. Actually, it was an interview. What he was saying, he was saying something that as the person gets older, suddenly the value of human life it reframes. So much of life is just about this context concept relationship. You know, if the person sets the context of the day as weak, it doesn't matter how much they act, they believe they are weak in their subconsciously, you know. And really what it is I would say all of life is like, I feel it is not freedom we seek, it is remembrance in the void. I feel evolution is not survival of the fittest. Or let us say there's an objective evolution, and the purpose of that is to survive. You got to physically survive. But let us say that now, let's say there's a subjective evolution, and the purpose of the subjective evolution is to be remembered. This is why people, when the human being is alone, unless it has a new declaration of the context, it will suffer. And you might not believe it. If your attention changes the context, your mood and emotions will instantly change. What does that mean? Let's say you've had I don't know. Let's say you are a person in the lower class of society and you get treated bad by the upper class, something like that. I don't know. Right now, in this moment, the only two things can change in regards to this idea of the concept context. And that's really what I've been doing. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to speech. Any other way to speech. Your attention is on the concepts change, how the concept is changing. Then your attention goes to how the context changes. It's this endless comparison of concept to context. What does that mean? I'll give you an example. I don't know how many students. Let us say this is the street smart student in life. The street smart student doesn't. Let's say there's I mean, I had this biology teacher, the whole class, uh, when I was young, and this biology teacher couldn't speak English. And I remember we reached a point where we were like, okay, say it in like Farsi. This was in Iran when I was like 15. When the context of something is clear, confidence arises too. That's so key. That's how when somebody knows what they're doing, when they can see, not they can see the chess pieces on the chessboard. And mindfulness is in the Zen tradition, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, with one conscious step, the person can enter heaven on earth. That consciousness is noticing the nature, the inevitable nature of the context. You see, the concept changes not only because we change, but also because the world changes. I'll give you an example. Let's say I say I am separate from that tree, and that gives me a definition of self. Let's say that tree is cut down, and tomorrow I see there is no tree, so it's literally I have to define, see my own separation in accordance with something else. And that constant something else's, it's the race between whether the concept changes quicker or the context. Like I've said the word concept and context so many times so far, guys. I think I have to merge the two. Let's say we create a word where the concept and context are inseparable, so they have a common point. So let's call it the concept, context. Let me see how would this be meshed. So the CEP and the TEX. So only, okay. Oh my God, guys, I got it. It's gonna be called a context. I can come up with two words of if we were to create like mesh the word context and concept. I would say we would spell the first one concept and context. This is perfect. All right, guys. So check this out. I'm gonna explain something in the chat section. People are going to see what I'm doing. So I've just changed the CNT. So I would say there we go. 2 new words that maybe one day in the future will enter the dictionary. Who knows? So, anyways, guys, self-replication. As a context, we want the world to continue. As a concept, we want the self to continue, I guess. Okay, so I'm back, guys. Had to relocate just to recap. Pretty much, I looked at these two words of the context and concept. Then I wondered if they were like an intersection, if they were like a Cartesian plane, if they were like a cross, like an X. It would be as if they would have a singular point. Now, going from the context and concept, let's say just like the X and Y axis, we have a concept and context axis. Or I would say, yeah, let's say we have this. And so we can say we have positive concepts, negative concepts, and we have positive context, negative context. And we can use this system to find people suffering. Like, I don't know why this is not being done. You see, it's like, let's say somebody has a problem, the doctor. Okay, I'll tell you this thing. This is a joke, but I'll tell you as if it's an ancient story. There once was this person who went to the doctor's office. And the guy went to the doctor and it's like, Doctor, my whole life has become pain. Everywhere in my body hurts. And the doctor is like, excuse me? And the guy's like, everywhere of my body hurts, you know? And he's like, look, doctor, it hurts me here, here, and here. This part of my knee hurts, you know, my back hurts. The doctor is conceptualizing this and it's like, it doesn't make sense. How could this guy's whole body hurt? And then the doctor sees the guy's finger was broken, and with a broken finger, he's been touching different parts of his body, thinking that pain is from everywhere. You see? And the doctor's like, buddy, your finger's broken. How do you not know this? You know? And that's the thing. That one inefficiency makes us feel the whole thing is inefficient. One defeat makes the person feel they have lost strength and they can't move on the battlefield anymore. Let me tell you, this life it's strange. There's this saying by George Patton. He says, you must serve before you command. And back in the day, the sages would say the mind is a lousy master, but a great servant. So technically, you have to serve your mind and then you master it. So technically, we can say the intelligence of the human being is a training ground for the ideological entity. Now, let's say you go, I don't know, hopefully one day this system, let's give it a name. And so let's say if from the context we move towards the concept, any upward movement in this X and Y kind of chart for the concept and context, if the y-axis was concept and vice versa, whatever. But the whole thing is like from the context, if we go towards positive, from the context, if we go towards positive context, what am I saying? From the context, if we go to a positive concept, we can use the word concept. Yeah, concept there. And if we say we're going from the concept to the context, again, we use the word, what I call it, context. So imagine like any person, let's say in any service-based thing, let's say psychologists. Okay, the psychologist first sees, is the problem from the outer realms or the inner realms? And if the person realizes the problem is from the inner realms, that has to do with the person's longer term kind of. Let us say there is immediate. There is an immediate. Let's say for the context and concept, there is a microcosm and a macrocosm. So what does that mean? That means micro concepts are fractally being macro concepts, you know, and let us say micro contexts are fractally in macro context. So I'm just adding a micro macro dimension to just the concept and to each of them, the context and the concept. Now what's interesting is the concept needs the context, or it's just like an object without meaning. It's just like a meaning, it's just ink on a page. That means when the person doesn't know the meaning of a word and they read something, it's like, what? Like literally there's a gap. It's like, what are these symbols here? You know, the letters become hieroglyphs when you don't have the proper context to. what you try to even conceptualize. For me, if people have noticed, I use the title of the talk as a context to ground myself and then give myself freedom to speak in any kind of way. We have to use the uniqueness of our inner realms to update the language of the outer realms. We have to input some sort of new way of communicating as a creature in this realm. You know, it's strange. In ancient times, they wanted to, it's like they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle Earth. And they're like, okay, let's get out of here, you know? Now, we are trying to get out of Earth to become an interstellar civilization if, from a very materialistic standpoint, we mess it up. The immaterialists wanted to leave the world, and the materialists have no choice but to leave the world. Everybody wants to leave the world. Isn't that interesting? You know, all our ideologies. The whole point is, I think we are seeking transcendental context, you know, involuntarily, and that's why science fiction. That's why movies. People still go to the movies because for a moment the person can be teleported to the possibility of reality, but not the actual reality. There was this writer, they go up to him and they're like, hey man, why do you write like these messed up stories? The guy would write messed up horror stories. And the person, and he's like, why do you take people's attention to this messed up horror? And the person's like, the writer who had been given an award, he said, I take people's attention there not so that they have to go there, that they don't have to go there. That means he's trying to like give an experience, like somebody who sees a violent action movie and they get pumped while seeing that. That's like some sort of release, psychological release. We live multidimensionally. we deny it. We live in a singular dimension. We get bored. We go to the multidimensional. We get bored. We go to the singular. And people are like, yo, is there karma here? It's like, I mean, seriously. Our eyes seem to be the kaleidoscope. Existence seems to be one event. And to limit intelligence, I mean, think about it. There is so much stuff here. I honestly feel like maybe some other people on this planet have a similar view, but for me, it feels like we're all left in this giant attic, this cosmic attic, where there's stardust everywhere. And so, to us who are first time in this attic, in this ancient system, for us who entered anew, we feel we can grasp it. We feel that we can contain it. And that's the thing. And think of it this way. Let's say something is too complex for you to conceptualize. You're like, okay, me try. Let's say there's an engine, a car engine. Let's say it's too complex for you to conceptualize it, to comprehend the function of it. But let's say you've reached a dead end of conceptualization, but now you start contextualizing it. You're wondering, how is the concept the concept? What is it even? What does an engine even mean? Do you see, when you wonder about, and sometimes when you question the source of an idea, this is one of those strange things where a belief system is like I would say it's like I don't know, it's like a, I don't know, soccer ball in the water. Like when you push it underneath the water, it disappears for a moment, but suddenly comes back. Do you know? Guys, I was giving this talk actually in the porch, and I had this cup of iced tea, and there was bees. These two bees had come into the cup of iced tea, and one of them had fallen into the, like, little bit of iced tea was left in the cup. And I put a pen in there. The bee had fallen into the iced tea. Its wings were on the water, and I put a pen in the cup to create a bridge for this bee. And check this out. This was down, like, before I relocated. The bee used the pen. It got up and it came back and fell again. And while I was talking, I was watching this. And I thought to myself, it's not that we never learn, it's that nature is designed to express itself. When you look at animals, like, they're not thinking of complex futures. They're just in the moment, like, all right, next step, next step. you know? There's an innocence to animal life it's just like, you're just like, oh, they have no idea how complex the world is. You know? And so if we are humble, we would see that we perhaps may be visible animals to invisible civility. I don't know. In acting, I could tell you that there's this thing where it's called subtext, and it's pretty much, an actor tends to ask the director, what is the motivation of the character? What is the emotion? And so the actor, the professional actors, for example, you would see Marlon Brando. The dude who played the Godfather, this guy would indulge into the context of the character instantly. Heath Ledger, these were all actors who instantly went into the context of the character. They engulfed themselves in the world of the characters they wanted to bring to life on the screen. Now, in the case of Marlon Brando, you would say an extreme method actor. When what was his name? Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather, went up to this guy, to Marlon Brando, and the script of The Godfather was there, and what Marlon Brando did was right there. He was in his like mansion or whatever. He put a tissue underneath his lip. He put a tissue underneath his lip, and then he got shoe polish and started coloring his hair as if he was trying to bring bit by bit the character to life. You know? You know, some people wonder why actors in the film industry are self conscious. And it's because their job is to endlessly look in the mirror. Or even Heath Ledger, I'm thinking the person who played the Joker. Like, it was a remarkable performance, it was a work of art, but at the same time, the context of the character was so dark. That means you could have, like, I could have seen that if Heath Ledger had an ability to play that kind of a performance for a character like Joker, that level of method acting, if it was a different character, perhaps he could have brought it to life as intensely as that. But I don't know, like the allure of the trickster archetype, even in Nordic mythology. Now I would say it's like we're in the joking around phase of the civilization. It's pretty much reaching a point where I think, unless there is a new ethos, a new universal vision, that means all human beings on this planet being like, okay, I have an opinion on, okay, the room I'm in. I have an opinion on the city I'm in. I have an opinion on the nation I'm in. I have an opinion on the planet I'm in. I have an opinion on the solar system I'm in. I have an opinion in the galaxy I'm in. I have an opinion on the universe I'm in. And ultimately, when it comes to the mystical turnaround, the person can wonder about the origin of the origin fearlessly. I'm telling you, when you realize you're a temporary being, all the softness just kind of just like falls off, evaporates. Just when you see, it's literally like when the person sees there's a finish line coming to this realm, it's as if all artificial mannerisms that deep down the person knows, they just fall off. Because when you experience your temporalness, that's when really the eternal becomes a question for you. To wonder, was it just this? Was it just a theatrical performance of mindless elements? Or was there a mind with a hidden story that, if mankind was collective enough, could reveal instantly? That means how an advanced civilization would feel, at least for our species, would be as if every day we wake up, is it advanced yet? No. Okay, keep working. Is it advanced yet? No. Keep working. And generations of endlessly people waking up and double checking to see how advanced every effort in civilization is. And let me tell you, there is something we haven't realized, we haven't experienced yet as a species, on a species level. Right now, I would say we are in the costume game phase of language. Or you want to hear it more intensely again, think of the language wars, where it's not just enough to just physically exist. Now, language is like to have a direction in this life is becoming more of the fad. Back in the day, the mystic was like, no meaning, it's all one. Now you're like, okay, it can't be just all one. The person has to go to work. So, so there is a dimension of behavior that I find at some point becomes irrelevant. That means here's the thing: the moment, let's say, a person can get liberated through the context or through the concept. The concept would be like the yogi saying, "All right, buddy, say the mantra Om." Just go sit somewhere in nature and be like Om, just sincerely, until you find its silent meaning, until the secret of nature is no longer a secret, until you have realized why you're saying the mantra. And there's some people who it's different. They don't need a concept. The person has reached an experiential level, and those people who need an experience, usually, the you could say uh, the guru oral transmission tradition, the way is a challenge. That means if this disciple is weak, you know, you give him a simple task. If the person is strong, they don't need simplicity necessarily. It's honestly the taste. The person can simplify things. There was a time where when I would get into discussions, I would fight. I would be like, no, 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 no. Then I learned, oh my God, a lot of discussions can end with just a question. That means imagine the person says something and you just say, how do you know? How do you know? And that's the thing. There is freedom here, strangely. And because there is a freedom beyond ideology, even, it grounds us in human experience. That means we should, as a species, we don't realize it, but we are subconsciously um, learning the language of human decency. That means imagine all the animals somehow had a consciousness, you know? And they were watching us, and we were the most advanced. Imagine we were the leader of all the species. Imagine no animals started going against human beings, and they're like, all right, it's starting from insects, reptiles, all the different kinds of mammals aside from the human being, the homo sapien. Imagine all of them are like, all right, human beings, you guys are the captain of the ship. If we had that kind of responsibility, how we are living now is denial. I would say we are a species in denial of the simplicity of its nature having an ability to surpass whatever complex Shakespearean world story we create. I would say back in the day, people, they were less self-conscious because the world outside was just the game to play. Now that we're in the information age, the world inside has become something to play too. That means there's some people, I remember there was this person, he was playing literally social chess. And it depends what you want. Every person's nature is defined by where their attention is. That means they could put the most greatest food in front of you, but if you're thirsty, you're not gonna you're gonna go towards like drinking a glass of water. You know what I mean? But if you're hungry, that food has value. If you're hungry for your moment, it has value, it has meaning, there's something you can do. But if the person doesn't, or their attention is somewhere else, then why should the moment have value? That means if you haven't cared for your own moment of being, the world's going to be like, excuse me, you want me to care? If you can't care, you want me to care? Do you see what I mean? Like, eventually the person wakes up. That both concepts change, contexts change, and it's okay. The person can ride this roller coaster and still be a decent human being at that. And decency means we gave the advanced a shot, an opportunity. That means the opportunity cost of selfishness is the delay in the most advanced masterpiece that this species will build. That means that's one thing. For me, if they were like, what's the purpose of life? I would say to see how far we can see. For the world is here now, and tomorrow watches us without eyes. This idea of zooming in on existence, I was thinking, let's say you have the potential to zoom in and out, and one thing is common. The person looking through the lens is stationary. The lens, the camera zooms in. So the zooming in and out doesn't change where the eyes of the person are or the capacity of the eyes of the person. They just change the display of the scene. So if we took this on a mystical level, it would be as if like you have been from the beginning as an unknown viewer, knowing your life in segments, in conscious portions. Some Sufis, the likes of Attar of Nishapur, he would say something where he had this quote, I remember it exactly, but he was saying something like, how fascinating are our dreams? How many hidden worlds, how many hidden wisdoms, you know, are there in our inner realms, in the dream state? That means you could totally see, like, they didn't have virtual reality goggles back then, but you can totally see, like, when the person would close their eyes and imagine whatever, that was virtual reality technically. Or even if they had a next level dream, imagine somebody back in the day dreamed of skyscrapers, and he came up to people and he's like, one day the houses are going to be so big that you can't see their roof, you can't see the top of the house. And people were laughing, no way, no way, buddy, you know. He's like, one day civilization would just be giant rectangles, that's it. And people were like, get out of here, man, we're like sheep herders, you know. You know, that's not, do you see what I mean? That means the sometimes I think communication could be between different uh, dimensions. It's not just people that can communicate, perhaps. That's one thing which is complex, very complex. How alive is the world that we can't see its edge of? How alive is the world that we can't see its edge? How alive is an edgeless world? That is the one of those ultimate questions, guys. One of those once in a lifetime, at least for me, questions that are. So, anyways, if the person feels conceptually life is satisfied, the context maybe has to change. A lot of people, even you can say youth that kind of like in you see in films, like the kid escapes the house at night to go to some adventure. Why is that escape? Because the context wants to be refreshed. And the context can refresh either by relocating or just totally in your inner realms perceiving, just revaluing the system again. You know, the person refreshes their browser on their, you know, they refresh their web browser, and so I feel with every blink, we are actually micro refreshing the whole browser. And it's not even with that, with the blink, the inhalation and exhalation is another filter. That means if the person was to really zoom in, there would be so many layers to the body. I would tell you it would be like the number pi. That's endless. It's an irrational number. That means, is there a meaning to eating an endless pie? I don't know whether you're a mathematician or not. And that's education, just people realizing we are concept jumpers and context jumpers. I would say that's one thing that is shape shifting behind the eyes of man. How the person sees themselves in a certain concept or a context. And that was the whole thing about the romantic effort, the whole romanticism phase in the childhood of the Western Enlightenment, I would say. The context was magical, but the concepts were very real. And metaphysics, unless experientially we discover more and more and get acquainted with a sort of mystical um, self inquiry, pretty much think of it this way: the person checks their vehicle to see if everything is proper. Now, how do you check yourself? Let's say you're a biological vehicle. How do you check yourself? Or even the ideological vehicle of the subjective self, the I thought. There's this Zen story. There's this, excuse me, there's this Zen master, and he has a bunch of disciples, and one of the disciples is stealing from everybody. And the people, the disciples notice this, and they go to the Zen master, and they're like, "Yo, this guy's stealing stuff. What do we do?" And the Zen master says, "Forget it. Don't think about it." Now, what happens is the same problem continues. This time again, this time a group of three of the disciples come up and they're like, "Sir, this is happening again." They bring up the guy. Let's say about the disciples gather around and they bring up the guy and they're like, "Sir, this guy's doing it. What do we do?" Pretty much I missed the part, but they bring it one more time, and the guru says, "Forgive and forget the guy. Forget it. That means don't give it life to it." Now, what happens is the last time the disciples are fed up, and they bring the disciple that's been stealing to the Zen master, and they're like, either you kick him out or we're all leaving. And this is where, guys, this part of the story is where I say sets apart the real power of the human being. The Zen master looks at the disciples and says, "You guys all know the difference between right and wrong. So you guys can all leave. You're dismissed if you choose to." But this man This guy who's been stealing, he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. For him, he's still playing with the toys of the outer realms. And so the Zen master has the audacity to say everybody can leave, but because this person doesn't know, he requires assistance. That the whole thing was that no one fell when earth was made in heaven. For what greater theological conclusion can there be of any sort of story of the divine? Pretty much we are unknown opportunities in a world that we're knowing bit by bit. Every person's mind, there is no suggestion to intelligence. Let's say we're judging people. Imagine all the people that we are saying like, oh, that person's like that level intelligence, that person is that level intelligence. All this categorization. Imagine they connect all our heads to one giant computer in the future or in one giant cloud. Then what would there be? Would there be intelligence comparison? No. We're all the same intelligence. And energetically, that is the case. Energetically, I have everything in common with everything. Existentially, too, I exist, with everything that's existing now. But when it comes to experience, that's when somehow in this life, by noticing beyond that I had experienced a moment where I noticed I'm not a thought, pretty much. and and what I mean is that I realized the story that I had been chewing on, do you know? Like some unnecessary, sugary, thing, I would say survival is an addiction to continuity. Do you know it's like regardless of how before the human being life was happening, it was happening very silently. Now that we speak as creatures, the silence is in the passenger seat. Language is the source code for of meaning. When you realize you're not a character in a story, you will laugh as an energetic journeyer. Oh, I forgot to change the wallpaper. We are alive today, yet how much are we focused on real life? It's as if pixels are slowly becoming our overlords. But in a strange way, it's also continuity of the mind. That means I would say there is no good and bad. It has been the greatest hoax in history. Because what one sees as good in one moment, it's like years later in the future it could totally be seen as bad, then it could be seen good again, and then more into the future it can endlessly, based on who's looking, the evaluation of the value of reality can change. I would tell you there is a hidden dimension to sight that before the concept, the presence of attention and experience in the moment can be the only context. The person asked the guru, I can't see God, I can only see my ego. The guru shouted back, who do you think is moving your ego? Do you think a concept is moving a concept? Because the moment we accept ourselves as ideology, that is the enslavement of the attention. I don't know how these talks come across to the audience, but to me, it feels like a machete in a linguistic simulation, and I'm just in the Amazons with this machete, just being like, why are there so many ways that we have boxed up the world in letters? We have reached a time where we require more than language to be satisfied. And the only way is collective action. Not collective action as if you see a child's mentality. The child, it wants to break something because the child doesn't want to spend the time to look at something and see actually what the true value is. You can say the more dishonest the person is, the more dismissive they are. And there is this thing that the dishonest know the dishonest. There is something of the resonance of eyes that have had similar experiences. And it's the same with the honest. Every person should ask, if you were like looking at yourself from the sky, like let's say you had a jetpack and let's say you had an out-of-body experience, or if you don't like that metaphor, just see a jetpack and you're looking at the world from above. And the whole point is you get to see yourself though too, from above the sky. You know, like you being in the sky, you're looking down, you see yourself. And that's what I'm saying. If the person can care as much as they have cared for themselves, and like how much you as a human being have cared to understand yourself or cultivate individual skills, if the person does that for the world, I am telling you, it's like if there was one thing if a person had to do in this life before exiting this plane of existence, I would say to just have one moment, one instant where you consider everything and you just honor it in the way you know. That's it. Imagine the person somehow found an audience with the divine and was like, what is truth? Give me truth. And the divine's like, okay, here. And the divine gave truth. And the person's like, that's it? And the divine's like, yeah. After you know the truth, then you go live. So then you realize where you were from the beginning was correct. It's a round circle. All those people who their identities require to be infused in a metaphysical narrative will come to realize that what was there from the beginning was a sort of pure silence. That means, let us say we extract the sense of self from sounds and noises, and let us say we also extract the sense of ourself as silence, but that self is void. Sometimes I have, throughout the day, I would say, philosophical panic attacks. And what I mean is, it's like as if I'm just doing a simple task, being, simple me, and suddenly in the middle, I'm like, am I being an entity right now? Am I just being a form? Like when creaturehood settles in, I would say it's like before you can get depressed, you're going to get shocked by how many elements to this massive system are unknown. And if you can't fear, if you don't fear the unknown, I will tell you, that's when you will see the real earth. That's when your heartbeat will become the commander of whatever ideological possession from the past is pushing the person. It's a declaration of instant freedom. That means there's a type of freedom that the person's like, all right, I'm going to work for it and I'm going to get it. Then there's a type of freedom where the person is saying, how dare this freedom not be there from the beginning? You see, it's the freedom of the original. That freedom is like, I've sometimes metaphorically said, that's divine royalty. It is the fearlessness that comes from the remembrance of the original. And you somehow remember the original. Let me tell you what happens. I'll give you, this is so important, I will tell you. I have noticed the trend. In an artificial culture, you can say there is no real people. And I will tell you that human beings, this is just how we're raised, where the person is raised dependent on the environment. The child is young, the child can't feed itself, the child is just oblivious, so the child is dependent on the environment. You know? Now this psychology at some point should melt away like a candle. And it tends to as you experience life, whoever you are. You know? And this psychology where the person is dependent on the outer realms to move their inner realms goes away. And so there comes this sort of strange thing where the person feels it's their right to be in their moment. That means whether the person thinks there's a metaphysical framework to the realm or not, I would say whoever you are, where energy and attention are being you is your authorized existence. So when the person abides in accordance to the resonance of what they already are before they do anything, nature doesn't have karmic interruption. And if there is, it doesn't linger. That means if you're in a bad situation, I would say the person has to just look at the context immediately, if it's a dangerous situation. Their mind has to live ahead of them so they can decide out of the endless probabilities of movement that there is in the moment. Our mind is living ahead of us, and that's how we know what to do. What that means is, as I'm saying these words to you, it's like there's this, all that I am as a being is a presence. It's like this beam of attention. When I think about as the intelligence of the being, that means it's like a field, and it's like a invisible field, and that invisible field is moving visible particles, right? Now we tend to see the movement of the visible particles, and we've created this whole linguistic system, the linguistic simulation, to kind of endlessly interpret reality into chunks. Do you know what it is? It's as if like there was a chef who was cutting like a carrot like in thin slices, and somebody was like, can you cut this cake, for the children of the world? And this chef was cutting like thin slices, this cake, and somebody was like, what are you doing? That means the whole issue of nature is that people have to realize you have not just come into this world to see others, you have also come to see who you are. And the way the system is designed, we tend to avoid this question. That we just look at ourselves in the mirror and that is enough. It's as if there's no more questions. It's like, what about who's looking? What about what is that who? That means when two human beings, let's say this is how war starts. Pretty much war starts from the mind. What does that mean? That means miscommunication. Miscommunication means two people couldn't see the same world. So they are fighting in which one's world wins. Do you see? The moment we render tyranny and Here's the thing, when nature is not in the steering wheel, nature is not in the driver's seat, is not moving the steering wheel. Language owns you. That means if I ignore the unknown and consider that in this moment all I see is only this, it's like those two people in conversation, they're I don't know how to say it. It's as if like they say don't judge a book by its cover, but then we think it's only matter here. The mystic experientially was reading this book of the DNA. Because sometimes you got to think about it. If the person has karma, does that mean the mind has karma or the body has karma? Because when I think about the body, it makes sense. The body has karma. But when I think about the mind, how can a mind have karma? Even though in Vedic thought they say there's an accumulation, as if there's a universal memory and the tip of the iceberg is what you remember here. And as you reverse engineer to the origin of how language became a reason not to look at the world anew, you will be free before the idea of freedom was there. Nature knows what man will never. Honor really comes from the event at hand and how you treat it. That means if you treat your life as an event and you're like, okay, let's see how the samurai lived. They lived a bit extreme, but their honor was worthy, So if you think of what honor there is to live, the story of the world is a dishonorable one. If animals could speak, we're like aliens eating them. If aliens could speak, they would be, let's say higher dimensional beings could speak, they would be like, your species is still fighting over how members of the same species look like. That means just by the similar skeletal structure, that should be enough for you to know you're in the same species, you're the same part of the same species. But there's so much complexity of appearances that I'm saying the language wars are the costume games of how we conduct ourselves as in society. Because think of it this way, in a natural system is the denial of the nature's potential. That means you can't plant seeds where there's concrete. But that's the power of nature, that sometimes it breaks through even though there's a layer of concrete. You know what it is? It's as if like the universe wants to design the most advanced beings and it's just taking its time, so we're evolving very because the great question comes, if the idea of God, the Abrahamic God, is perceived to be man-made, then the next question comes, what made the idea of man? And it was silent witnessing as the whole moment, just like how a candle witnesses or whatever the candela of illumination that it has. That means literally our minds are candles and the world is unknown and everything is technically chaotic. If we move in an ordered way, we can give order to the system. So sometimes in your life, if you think you're stuck in a certain concept, youth pretty much feel like this, then study the context. Try to move as in the context of your life. If you feel the context, oh my God, life is meaningless, the context is you're stuck at the context, go and look at new concepts. And eventually the person will realize everybody, their mind is like a horse, a unique horse, that they have to learn to ride themselves. That's the only way. There was this Sufi, and this Sufi back in the day, they would say the idea of the pearl. The pearl was wisdom. So there was this man who was enlightened, and the pearl was like the enlightenment. And so people would go to this Sufi man and say, "Hey, give me a pearl." Now, then one day this guy goes and says, um, "I want a you. You are known to give pearls of wisdom. I want a pearl from you. If you can give, if I can pay for the pearl, I will, whatever its cost. If I need to, I can pay for it." Oh my God, there was another part to it. Oh my God. Let me rebuild it, guys. Maybe I'll remember it. Pretty much, this guy goes to the Sufi. He says, either give me the pearl. Let me find this, guys. Let me just find this. I can't remember the quote. There we go, guys. I found the quote from Attar. He says, "A young man came to Junaid and wished to become his student. He said, 'You have been recommended as an expert on pearls of wisdom. Please give me one or sell it to me.'" There we go. That was the one. "Please give me one." And Junaid says, "You could not afford the price if I sold it, and if I gave you one for nothing, you would not realize its value. You must do as I have done. Dive into the sea and wait patiently until you obtain the pearl." That means you have to trust life and live where you where your attention is most immediately localized. And the trust of the unknown is really where knowledge can breathe again. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I'll be in the Discord server for 10 minutes for those interested. Much blessings and namaste.